Well, what do you think the big things that could come out of this reset due to COVID could be for tennis? What would be the main things you think tennis could benefit from?
It's the first time I can ever remember where you've really had a time to pause and reflect on what things look like in your own life and also professionally. And in terms of tennis, first of all, recognising the fact that only 100 men and 100 women make a decent living, and how poor that is, and how the model of the tours are flawed, and we need to address that. So we have to create more tournaments regionally so players can live at home. If they've got kids, they can go to school at home, be based at home, less expenses, and a much better lifestyle. So that's number one. I hate the word qualifying. I mean, these are elite athletes that are ranked in the top 200 in the world, and they've got this stigma of being qualified as if they're not good enough. In any other major sport, they would be elite, highly successful athletes being paid very well. So it's not the slams issue, although of course the slams can always do more, of course. It's about the construct of the tours. And we have a model that there's barely 100 men and 100 women that make a decent living in the sport of tennis. This is the time, in this break, to have a look at those things and explore different options in the sport that haven't really been looked at before. Should singles guys play more doubles? Have we got the right timings of the week? Have we got the right draw sizes? Have we got the right tour fabric around the world? When travelling is not as sexy as it was, burning the ozone layer and the green repercussions of so much travel, continent to continent, week in, week out. So this is the time to look at it, albeit it's not going to happen overnight. But if we don't look for a reset now, we will never do that in our lifetime. We will never see. We will never have this opportunity again.
So regional tours, more local tournaments, that sort of thing, is that the answer?
It's so expensive just to play any sort of schedule as a player. You could be ranked 700 in the world, 500, 300. It doesn't really matter. You have to travel so far around the world to gain ranking points. You can't just stay in Australia and make it. It's impossible. If you're in qualifying, let's say you rank 250, 300 playing qualifying, there is no prize money in qualifying. No prize money in ATP challenges. You can't possibly make a living. So, and your travel expenses are so high. So the model whereby it's more local makes complete sense. So I see Europe being a real hub, the Americas being a hub, Asia and Australia being a hub. But you could basically be an Aussie, go up to Asia for 2 or 3 weeks and come back. You're living from home. You're based at home. This is transformational. If the Asia Pacific region could have its own, I don't want to call it a tour, because the tours would say that's a threat to our sovereignty over the word tour. It could be a conference of the tour. It needs to happen if you want 300 men and 300 women to make a decent living and not be in poverty.
Why do you think it's taken COVID to shine a light on the circumstances of those lower ranked players?
Yeah, well, as in life, timing is everything. And it took COVID to bring to light that actually the players outside the top 100 weren't just complaining, actually weren't making a living. Because what brought to light was that the prize money distribution is completely top heavy in tennis, and that the guys outside the top 100 are on the breadline. And so the tipping point has come where, for example, there will be a redistribution of prize money, because at the moment, in virtually every round, the prize money doubles from one round to the next. There should never be more than a 50% differential between rounds. And the winner's check, instead of being, $500,000, might be $300,000. Well, we were talking about the model of the tour. I don't understand why tennis starts on the week on a Monday morning and finishes on a Sunday. On Monday morning, all the kids are at school, everybody's at work, you've got the most matches on the most courts and nobody watching. I mean, you couldn't get a worse way to begin the show in any sport than a Monday morning. What I'm talking about costs nothing. Changing the timing from Monday morning to Saturday morning costs nothing. 32 main draw and 16 qualies, changing that to 48 main, costs nothing. They don't cost. Redistribution of prize money, more at the bottom, less at the top, costs nothing. There's 3 ideas that cost nothing that transform. What I love about the IC, you're worrying about players beyond the tour who go through hardship. This is hardship for players on the tour, which the tours should be dealing with. Unless one's been in poverty, you don't know what it's like to be dealing with it, and the pressures and humiliation and the stigma of not making it. So many former players that I know have never gotten over not making it, as if it's some, put down or you're a loser. These were guys, same as me. Some of them deal with it well. Some of them have never really coped with why they didn't make it, or why they didn't make it, and the fact they didn't make it. But they were really, really good tennis players, and it's because the stigma of you have to be in the top 100 to make a living, and so many people say, well, if you're not good enough, try something else. There are 900 guys in AFL and NRL making incredibly good livings with no expenses. How can you have 900 NRL guys, making good money, and you've got an Aussie, that maybe the number 10 Aussie like Andrew Whittington, he has to quit because he can't make a living? I mean, seriously?
So change is needed, and we really need to help those players who are in times of trouble now.
They haven't even got the status of being a player. They're qualifiers, or they're challenger players, or they're dregs. They're stigmatised, they're broke, and no one's been there to help them. And the slams, I think, have done a pretty good job lifting the whole thing. The prize money in qualifying is not where I would like it to be. However, it's been enormously improved. And I'm talking about, the hundreds of tournaments throughout the year that have got to accept change. And the challenger level on the ATP Tour can be upgraded and to tour level, and the WTA 125s, there can be more of them in more areas and more regional, and this can happen, but this won't happen overnight. For the next level down, there's only 4 or 5 Aussies, men, and 2 or 3 women that are making a living in tennis. Please. This is a reset moment that we hopefully will never see again. But are we going to take advantage of it? That's the question.
Well, here's to some positive outcomes for tennis from COVID. And thanks for talking to us and sharing those ideas. Thanks, Paul.